We all know that chicks dig the long ball, and we also know about that star quarterback on the football team and that star guard on the basketball team. However, today I would like to talk about a sport that necessarily isn't as popular as it used to be, and that sport is tennis. And in particular, I would like to talk about an athlete that physically doesn't look that much stronger than you and I, but has come to dominate his sport like no other. And the name of that athlete is Novak Djokovic. Now, I've been watching tennis for about 10 years now, and for the first 5 years, I saw Novak Djokovic's contemporaries, Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer, dominate the sport of tennis like no duo has ever dominated in the history of sports. However, over the last 5 years, I have watched Novak Djokovic dominate the sport of tennis just as well as Nadal and Federer did, if not even to a greater extent. Now, today I would like to talk about the problems that Novak Djokovic faced early on in his career, and once he overcame those problems, how he was able to dominate the top players in the world, and how he was able to have success at the major tennis tournaments in the world. Now, the first point I would like to talk about is the problems that Djokovic faced early on in his career. Now, for years, Novak Djokovic lived in the shadows of his contemporaries, Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal. But a lot of this had to do with health problems that he had early on in his career, including breathing problems, leg cramps, and many mid-match collapses. However, this all changed according to Paul Newman in 2010. In his article, revealed the diet that saved Novak Djokovic, that was published on The Independent on August 19th, 2013, where he states that during a match in 2010, during the Ryder Cup, Dr. Igor Setojevic, who was Djokovic's nutritionist at the time, went to Djokovic during a sideline, and he tested him for if he was sensitive to gluten or not. And it turned out that Djokovic, in fact, was sensitive to gluten. And this was the turning point in Djokovic's career. And ever since that day, Novak Djokovic has worked very hard on his strict gluten-free diet regime and his strict fitness regime that was associated with that to reach his full potential as a tennis player. And ever since then, that is how he was able to become the dominant player that he is now. And with this, I would like to move to my second point, which is Novak Djokovic's dominance over the top 10 players in the world. Now, according to the ATP World Tour site, or the Associations of Tennis Professionals, Novak Djokovic has 119 wins over the top 10 players in the world over the last 5 years, while his contemporaries Nadal and Federer only have 64 and 62 respectively. And of course, once you're dominating the best players in the world, naturally comes success in the top tennis tournaments in the world as well. And this is exactly what has transpired. So with this, I would like to move to my third point, which is Novak Djokovic's success at the Grand Slams, or the major tennis tournaments in the world. And there are 4 major tennis tournaments that occur every year. So over the last 5 years, there have been a total of 20 Grand Slams. And Djokovic has won 9 out of these 20 Grand Slams at a staggering 45%, which can only compare to the likes of Tiger Woods in the sport of golf, who won 44% of majors from 1999 to 2002. And these two statistics are very equivalent because, much like in tennis, there are also 4 major tournaments in golf. Now, as you can see here, here's a list of the players who are the Grand Slam with the most Grand Slams of all time. And you can see Roger Federer has 17, Rafa Nadal has 14, and Novak Djokovic is right behind them with 12. Now, 2 to 5 Grand Slams is quite a few in the world of tennis and even in the world of golf. However, with Rafa Nadal's injuries later in his career and Roger Federer nearing the end of his career, it is, who knows, maybe Novak Djokovic could perhaps surpass both Nadal and Federer in terms of total Grand Slam titles won. Now, I understand that tennis in America isn't as popular as it used to be with the likes of Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi, and I also understand that when most Americans tend to think of dominant athletes, we tend to think of Floyd Mayweather, LeBron James, and Tom Brady, just to name a few. However, through overcoming adversity early in his career, Novak Djokovic has worked hard to make himself a dominant figure in the sport of tennis as well. And according to John McEnroe, who was a 7-time Grand Slam champion himself stated recently that Djokovic is definitely into my all-time top 5, and further stated that Djokovic can become the best player of all time one day if he's consistent and improves even more. Now, best player of all time in any sport is very subjective, but there is no denying that Djokovic has already left his mark on the tennis history books and will continue to be a major force to reckon with, not just amongst tennis stars, but also when discussing the most dominant athletes in the history of sports as we know it.